911, what's the location of the emergency?
My daughter is missing.
What's your address, ma'am?
She's gone. We can't find her anywhere. I've called all her friends.
How old is she?
11.
Okay, what's her name, ma'am?
Carlie, Carlie.
And last name?
And welcome to another episode of Guilty or Not. Today we'll be talking about one of the most gruesome crimes to have been committed against a minor. On the 1st of February 2004, Super Bowl Sunday, 11-year-old Carlie Brucia left for home after a sleepover at her best friend's house the previous night. It was confirmed that she was still at her best friend Danielle's house at 6 p.m. and left after that. Carlie's mother Susan was, however, immediately sent into a fit of panic when Carlie's best friend's mother called to ask if letting Carlie come home by herself was okay with her. Though the distance between both houses was roughly a little over a mile, and Carlie had assured her earlier that she could go by herself, it was understandable why her best friend's mum was heavily second-guessing this indulgence, seeing as Carlie Brucia was only 11 years old. Susan immediately sent her husband, Carlie's stepdad Steve, to drive down the route between both houses and pick Carlie up. After going back and forth for over an hour, Steve was unable to find any trace of Carlie. Sarah and Steve searched frantically for their daughter to no avail, before resorting to calling the police to report her as missing.
911, what's the location of the emergency?
My daughter is missing.
What's your address, ma'am?
She's gone. We can't find her anywhere. I've called all her friends.
How old is she?
11.
Okay, what's her name, ma'am?
Carlie, Carlie.
And last name?
Brucia, Brucia.
Following the call, the police instantly put out a "be on a lookout" call for Carlie, providing useful information rendered by her mother, describing her as a shy 11-year-old girl with blonde hair and blue eyes. The police also searched the surrounding areas for her for over 4 hours with no success. At this point, the police had little or no leads to work with in solving Carlie's mysterious disappearance. At first, they even doubted whether she'd gone missing at all and asked Susan if Carlie had ever run off before. Susan asserted that Carlie would never do that. Carlie's friends revealed that she had expressed displeasure at her family the previous night. She had notably said she wished she didn't have to go home because she was overburdened with responsibilities. This revelation further heightened the skepticism of the police that Carlie had gone missing or was abducted. Carlie's stepdad Steve was summoned for questioning. This was following reports over a statement he'd made that was deemed as having an underlying sinister suggestion. He was, however, able to prove he had been at home during the period Carlie disappeared. Susan verified his claims, proving it was all just a misunderstanding. During his questioning, Steve rendered a new suspect. Ron Chouquette, a lover of Carlie's best friend's mother, who at some point during Carlie's visit was the only adult present. Steve had also noticed Ron's red truck driving suspiciously while they were searching for Carlie on the day of her disappearance. Ron revealed he had left for work way before Carlie left the apartment. His claims of being at work were verified by some of his co-workers, and he was cleared as a suspect. Ron lost his job as a truck driver the first time deputies questioned him on Carlie's disappearance. The next day, authorities were alerted by the manager of a car wash about their CCTV camera picking up something that looked pretty much like an abduction. The time of the footage was around 6:30 p.m, around the time when Carlie had left for home. The footage featured a male adult and a young girl. The man could be seen casually moving by at first. Anybody in the girl's shoes would have easily assumed he was just going to walk by them. However, in the final moment, the man made a swift and decisive lunge towards her. The man could be seen grabbing her firmly by the hand and taking her away until they were both out of the frame. Sarah and Steve, to their utter dismay, confirmed that the girl in the video was their daughter. The identity of the man, however, remained a mystery. The faces were blurry, and his auto mechanic uniform and heavily tatted sleeves, as observed on the footage, were the only clues to his identity that they had so far. The footage was then publicised in local media, after which the police received swarms of incoming calls offering leads on the case. It took a while, however, before the police eventually got their first major lead on who the culprit was. Several people who called, some of which included workers from an auto mechanics establishment, seemed certain that the man in the video was 37-year-old mechanic Joseph Smith. Joseph Smith was an auto mechanic with criminal records dating back as far as 1993, the most recent of which involved a drug bust, for which he was still on parole. At least 2 of his crimes involved violent acts of aggravated battery, kidnapping, and imprisonment of women. According to his colleagues, Joseph Smith bore semblance to the man in the footage, both physically and in mannerisms. He had also taken that particular day off work and was revealed to have displayed nervous traits the following day. Though Joseph immediately denied being the person in the video, his forearm tattoos and sustained cuts were early giveaways. After a search of his apartment and vehicle, Joseph was arrested. However, his arrest was not in relation to the disappearance of Carlie, but in violation of his ongoing parole conditions after several illicit drugs had been discovered in his possession. During interrogation, Joseph was stubbornly uncooperative. He continuously demanded to have his lawyer present, requested to speak to his family, and even asked if he could be allowed to smoke. Joseph was finally able to speak with his brother John via a phone call after he was returned to jail. The information divulged in this conversation would become the most important piece of information that would bring the investigation to a conclusion. Joseph admitted to raping and killing the young girl. He also revealed where he had left her body, a wooded area behind a church in the vicinity. On the right side of Carlie's body, investigators found abrasions which they immediately speculated she must have sustained from being dragged through the path to that point. The conducted autopsy revealed the cause of her death to be ligature strangulation. Signs of aggressive battery and sexual assault were also evident, as well as marks on her wrists indicating that she had been bound at some point. Joseph Smith was sentenced to life imprisonment for the kidnap and sexual battery of a minor. He also received a death sentence for the murder of Carlie Brucia.
And as follows as to count one of the charges, the defendant is guilty of murder in the first degree as charged.
Slow down for 1 second.
Smith will be back in court a week from Monday when the same jury returns to recommend a life or death sentence.
Smith's case resurfaced following new legislation adopted by Florida that prohibited death sentencing. In July 2021, however, while serving his life sentence, Joseph Smith died in prison due to undisclosed causes. While nothing can bring back Carlie, we are grateful that her family, her friends, and the entire Sarasota community will finally have closure and will not have to endure any further court proceedings to bring Smith to justice. State Attorney Brodsky was quoted to have said in a news release announcing the death. The citizens of Sarasota, Florida, were enraged at the police for allowing someone with an extensive criminal record to live freely among them without notice or warning, especially when he should have been in jail. Such an individual was only going to constitute nefarious threats to society, and absolutely no parent would want to raise their kids knowing there might be twisted characters at large, just waiting to prey on them. The outrage created by this case prompted a bill in the United States Congress by Representative Katherine Harris, Florida, with the support of Nick Lampson, Texas, and Marsha Blackburn, Tennessee, called Carlie's Law. This revision to the law was put in place to ensure mandatory revocation or strictly supervised release of persons for felony crimes of violence or crimes of violence against or offences consisting of or intending to facilitate unlawful sexual contact with a person under the age of 16. Carlie's mother Susan was, as you'd imagine, extremely devastated by the very gruesome murder of her daughter. Quote, "I'll never be the same," end quote, she revealed in an interview during the time. Quote, "She was my life, my beautiful girl. I can't get past what happened to her. No one should go through what my family has been through," end quote. The psychological effects of tragedies of this nature on the loved ones of the victims cannot be overemphasized. Though Susan devoted her time to advocating for child protection rights, she eventually fell victim to substance abuse. She was arrested for drug-related charges on several occasions, before finally dying due to a drug overdose on the 10th of April 2017.